Hello and welcome back to the Winning Agenda's coverage of Australian Nationals 2016. My name's Jesse Marshall and I'm here with Wilfy Horig.
Yes, you definitely are, and this is the most exciting game of all, potentially.
The most exciting game of all and the most accurate for me to describe as me being here with you, because I'm in fact here with you on the screen as well.
Oh, yes. Well, we're well underway by this point. Should we talk about what's going on in the game?
I think we should, because that was pretty crucial first turn for both of us. So you've installed 2 assets straight away and played Sweep, gone up to 9. I've gained a credit, drawn a card, and played out Wildside and Chronotype. So both of us have gone for a fast start, but I think your fast start is a lot more threatening than mine.
Yeah, so having bankers on the first turn is the best asset to have because it threatens to surge ahead in money. Like, if you have bankers unprotected for the whole game, you basically don't need any money on anything else to implement your game plan. So the fact that I've been able to economy install 2 assets is great.
And I've made the call there to try and get my Wildside Chronotype engine down to allow me to develop over a few turns. I did mulligan to try and find a hate card, didn't find a hate card, so figured I could, hopefully if I could get a few turns without you having bankers or getting too far ahead, then I could stabilize. But unfortunately, you did have the bankers there, so I failed to stabilize.
Oh, and, well, speaking of bankers, I do have a second one, which is fairly good for me.
Yeah, so you've got now double bankers, and I spent my whole last turn gaining 4 credits because I couldn't really run for fear of hard-hitting news at that point.
Yeah, because you went down to 0 from your resources.
Yep. So I've now got David, Medium, Dirty Laundry, and a Mimic in hand that I can see.
City Hall.
And a City Hall. So City Hall, not so useful against hard-hitting news. It's more for stopping the breaking news never advance plan. And you've now gone install advance, threatening the breaking news. So I have a choice here. I can sit back, gain credits, and install City Hall if I want. Or I've got a Faust and a David in hand and a Dirty Laundry, so I can start running and try and interact with your board somewhat.
Yeah, and I think you've decided, not now, but you will have decided when it comes up that you need to do something to diffuse the assets, which involves not spending all your resources, just cancelling out the breaking news, basically.
Yeah.
And instead hope to actually score it and keep the Faust on the board. Like, actually get some programs down.
Yeah, because if I get tagged before I've actually spent any of my credits or really used my 2 resources, then I'm starting the game again with no advantage, whereas you're starting with some very relevant cards on the board.
Yeah.
So having Faust down is definitely something, but unfortunately I installed the Faust and not the David just to hold on to some credits, and it was a wraparound.
Yeah. Do you usually install the Faust because it's more, the CTM decks usually have more low than high strength?
Yeah. So I think wraparound is the only ice in the deck. Wraparound and Tollbooth are the 2 that you would want to have the David instead of the Faust.
Yeah.
But anything like Turnpike or any of the tagging ice, you'd rather have the Faust.
Enigma, etc.
Yeah.
So yeah, you chose not to go through the wraparound, even though you knew that was a breaking news.
Yeah.
I would have thought about just pitching my whole hand to it.
Potentially. I think the fact that I had the medium and 2 Davids in hand meant that I was too worried about then getting locked out of the server by not having any relevant cards and still losing my resources anyway.
Oh, I see. Yeah, sure.
Like, if you just hard-hitting use me the next turn, I was going to lose them, having drawn only 2 more cards. So I've run an R&D here, and there's a Data Raven Rares I've decided to go tag me. I've played out the medium.
Yeah, so you played the medium last turn, so this is the best situation for it.
Yeah.
Like, to choose to do that.
And it was the best ice as well.
Yeah.
For it to be a Data Raven, because I can basically ignore it and not have to spend any additional resources on it.
Yep, so I'm switching out my regular power counters for some sweet winning agenda counters.
And there's 2 agendas on the second run. So that's pretty great. I've cleared off a pad as the first card. Then on the second run, I've seen 2 agendas.
Yeah, so basically, at that point, the perfect situation.
Yeah.
And now you're going a 4th time, presumably.
Yeah. To see 1 extra card. So nothing that I could afford to trash.
Yeah, which is... Yeah, and you have no credits.
With no credits,
so
that
no
makes
credits
sense.
and no recurring, so... Yeah, so I think I drew... At this point, I remember I drew not an ice, I can put an R&D. So I have a couple options. I could just... Like, I can't really develop my game plan any other way, apart without drawing cards, since obviously with no ice in hand. All I want is ice, really. So I chose to, because I know that the top 3 cards are all non-agendas, I've chosen to draw and hope that at least one of them is an ice, even though it means that the medium will see a fresh 4 cards, at least 4 cards if you run. And I think that's okay, since even if I miss the first time, I can Jackson again, and that gives me 4 extra cards to potentially see an agenda, an ice, potentially see an ice to put in R&D.
So I've gained 3 and played the David,
Yes.
presumably to try and set up for next turn.
Yeah, so I've
Purged
yeah,
the
which
virus
I
counters,
think
yeah.
is basically the only thing I can do in that position, since you getting even one access of 4 cards means I'm very likely to lose. If not then, like, soon after.
Yeah. So I think at that point I'd seen a toll booth and another piece of ice on R&D, maybe a toll booth Enigma, something like that.
Yeah.
So I knew that was very likely to be a toll booth, and there was no point me running
in
it.
fact, you know what the 2 ice are because you saw them before I drew
Yeah.
with Jackson. So yeah, I think a toll booth and a resistor.
Yep. And resistor obviously not being particularly great for me at the moment, sitting on 4 tags.
Yep, and it is funny that I'm banking up the Raven counters, so I can choose whether I want the resistor to be broken by Faust or broken by David.
Yep. It is an option for me there on any of those last 2 turns to go and trash the bankers group and go up to 5 tags.
Well, I
to
can
make the
choose.
resistor strength
I think
5.
at that point I realized that, like, we had this before.
Yeah.
I can just choose not to tag you.
That's right. The CTM's ability is optional, and this did happen in one of our testing games where I tried to do that and it didn't work out very well for me.
But yeah, I think maybe you just decided with the bankers group that it's not worth fighting my credits at this point.
Yeah. Which is hard because with closed accounts on the corp side, you can't really develop your own credit pool as the runner. So if you're not fighting their credits and they can res whatever ice they want, the game starts to get away from you pretty quickly.
Yeah, especially with hard-hitting news. Hard-hitting news means that there's always a valve to get rid of even lots of credits. Like, if there's no... Even if both players have lots of credits, hard-hitting news lets the corp utilize their masses of credits to at least land 4 tags and make the runner skip their turn.
Yep.
So yeah, it looks like you have decided to fight the
bankers.
Yep, and I think I did choose to tag you just because I want, at any point, if you draw... Like, I know they have Raven there, so it's not like you can go untagged, but I think that I'd rather have the resistor get broken by David, since I have a toll booth there, making each run one... It means that your David can only get through once, R&D once, by itself.
And so I think the only real out then for me is to draw spooned and knifed and get rid of the R&D ice.
Yeah,
so I've run to make you res the toll booth with only 2 credits so I don't lose mine.
Yeah, but since I have so many credits already, didn't turn out to be that as impactful as you would like.
No.
Yeah. So the fact I have Sensi, I do notice that I've still left HQ unprotected, so I probably Jacksoned. I think one of the Jackson was used to just shuffle in shuffle away 3 agendas just because R&D is so well protected.
Yeah.
And I figure at this point I should at least make it that you can't get free soccer counters and accesses.
So there's a Sensi and 2 other cards, probably a combination of pads and other Sensis.
Yeah, pads, maybe a Sansan, and yep, I decided to just fire off the exchange quickly. So
if I do have spooned or whatever,
yeah,
I can't just get into R&D.
Yeah, because I know that that's your main plan. So, and I think I want to definitely be able to Jackson. If I'm forced to use the Jackson, I need to be able to shuffle in the exchange as well.
So it's looking pretty dire for me here at the moment as the runner. I'm, as a default proposition, only going to be able to see 1 card per David off R&D, which is not a great exchange.
Yeah, so now I think I'm trying to work out... I've decided now that I'm just going to load you up with all the tags. Yep, so you can spend 3 credits, 3 cards, and your last remaining David counter, which is still not great.
Yes. to get in again past the toll booth
Yep.
with fast. And looking at the cards in hand, that perhaps wouldn't be so bad. Although only seeing one additional card is not great.
Yeah, so ideally you want to do them on different turns. So I think I've chosen to res my Sensi in order to bottom some agendas. Because I think I must have, or even if I don't have one in hand, I think firing the first one is still good, and then you can choose whether to fire the second one or not, depending on what you draw off the first one.
And I can't quite see what you have in hand, but I think that might have been a food that went on the bottom.
Yes, almost certainly. Yeah, I usually in this kind of situation, I try and bottom food first, then beer, then ice, or something else.
Yeah, so losing the credits there was quite annoying for me because I did want to play that second David out on the following turn.
Yep.
And then get 2 more accesses on R&D.
Yeah, and I think I've probably realized that this was happening. Or even if you don't, you can still get in at the moment. So
yeah.
Just with 3 credits. So now, if you spend... Now the only way you can do that is if you spend 3 credits and run, which is fairly difficult to justify, like spending your whole turn and your last David counter, and you're basically 2 turns, at least 2 turns, just to see 2 cards.
Yeah.
Especially since the Sensi's almost certainly bottom 2 agendas.
As opposed to the situation I was in where it would have been 3 clicks to see 3 cards off the top, like 2 and then 3, so 5
and potentially
potentially
more depending on what happens.
Agendas are trashables. Yeah. So yeah, that not interacting with those Sensis probably came back to bite me there. It would have been not too difficult to spend recurring credits in the last couple of turns doing that.
Yeah.
Given that the CTM penalty is pretty much irrelevant.
Useless at this point, yeah.
But it is always hard to know as the runner, do they have the closed account sitting in hand, or is it going to be the Sensis that leads them to draw it, and you know, evaluating that compared to building up for what you want to actually be doing.
Yep. So what's going on now? Oh, I'm just scoring a
bill.
deal. Trying to get some points out of my hand, I think. Yeah, and I think at this point I've sensed it enough that I have a bunch of either ice or pads or something. Generally useless stuff sitting in my hand, so it's all going in the bin.
So I'm now staring down 4 points on your side.
Or maybe hard-hitting users. I do remember having drawn a few hard-hitting users.
And I just want to get that David down. Okay, so that means that my turns, I can now threaten to just go game 3 run R&D, game 3 run R&D for the next 2 turns, which is not great, but at least it's something.
It gives you a chance to win. Yeah. But it is interesting that you didn't kill that Sensi there.
Yeah.
What's that? Hedge fund, I think? Yep. So you must have decided that I already have everything I need, which I don't know if that's entirely correct, just because I'm still not really that close to scoring that last agenda through the remote. You can spend... Of course, it's going to take all your resources to do it, but that's such a terrible trade for me at this point.
Mm-hmm. And I think before that turn, your money was reasonably low. Oh, I'm just dropping cards.
Yeah, I think I had 10 credits. There's 2 5s sitting there. Near the bottom of my ID.
So I've trashed the Sensi. I don't want to just let you have free agendas off the board.
Yep.
Not that that's something that Wilfy Horig is known to do, but...
I don't think I might have done it a couple of times with this deck. Maybe.
But you never know. I mean, as you say, the obvious path to victory here is to build a remote and then install advance a food and score it that way.
Yeah.
But you can also just score another Beal off the board and then score a breaking news.
Yeah.
Okay, so there goes the food, and that's saying you've got to win this turn, which makes it pretty hard when I've only got 1 medium counter and no credits. So I have to just go game 3.
Yeah, and run. And I think it worked out perfectly that you trashed the Sensi, because it meant that you had no credits at the start of your turn, which... Yeah, because I was setting up to build this Turnpike toll booth. My plan was build Turnpike, toll booth, and then close the count to you.
Yeah.
So, have those 2 things there and close the count to you. So you had 0 credits to build the remote that you couldn't get through.
Yeah. So that didn't work out too well in terms of the medium dig. I think the opening hands were really what sort of dictated how that game was going to go.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, so I took the punt with the wildside chronotype that I would have a couple of turns of breathing space, but unfortunately, Banker's Group is designed just to not give the runner any breathing space whatsoever.
And politicals in general, really. Yeah.
So that's, I think, a pretty good example of how CTM can really get on top of the runner early.
I think, it would have been interesting to see what would have happened if you just pitched your hand to get into the breaking news server, because I think that was what made it much easier. Because at that point, it would have been possible to control the bankers. Like, if you were gaining 2 from your... Like, the point is that I think I never saw hard-hitting news until later.
Yes. Whereas I made the mistake of playing around it from early.
Who knows? But maybe when your opponent has that many cards in hand, like when your opponent's board is developing so quickly, you have to kind of resign yourself to get hard-hitting used.
Yeah. And certainly I also had the New Angeles City Hall and could have gone for that plan earlier. When you went for the install advanced breaking news, I think I had 4 credits, so I could have gained a couple and played the City Hall. So a couple of options there early. Went for the medium dig, didn't quite work out.
But definitely easily could have, Cool. Well, thanks for watching, everyone.